In the past, I made a couple of videos covering what happened to all of the major Harry Potter characters after the book's end. In fact, one such video covers the fates of 100 separate characters, exploring what they got up to when Voldemort was defeated and the dust had settled at Hogwarts. But while making those videos, there were a number of characters I encountered whose fates, in the books, films, or both, were left pretty unclear. In some instances, Rowling left threads of what may or may not have happened to them, but overall, their ultimate destinies remain a mystery. Did Lavender Brown actually die during the Battle of Hogwarts? Did Marietta Edgecombe ever get rid of those awful pimples left by Hermione's jinx? And was Dolores Umbridge ever properly punished for her crimes? Today we'll be looking at 5 of these characters whose stories were left unfinished, the witches and wizards whose ultimate fates J.K. Rowling never revealed. If you want more of these, taking a look at even more characters, then leave a comment down below. Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. Let's kick the video off with a contentious one. Lavender Brown. We were introduced to Lavender Brown very early on in the series. In fact, she was the very first new Gryffindor announced when she came to Hogwarts in the same year as Harry, Ron, and Hermione. However, there was never much attention placed on her until the 6th film, when her character really blossomed. And it was in her 6th year that she developed an infatuation with Ron Weasley. And although Lavender eventually had a falling out with her beloved 1-1, she still went on to join Dumbledore's army, intent on helping with the protection of Hogwarts and standing against the Death Eaters. And by the time the Battle of Hogwarts came, Lavender fought bravely, standing her ground against even the likes of Fenrir Greyback. 2 bodies fell from the balcony overhead. As they reached the ground, a grey blur that Harry took for an animal sped 4-legged across the hall to sink its teeth into one of the fallen. "No!" shrieked Hermione, and with a deafening blast from her wand, Fenrir Greyback was thrown backward from the feebly stirring body of Lavender Brown. After falling off of a balcony, Lavender was brutally attacked by the infamous and bloodthirsty werewolf Fenrir Greyback. Known for his animalistic brutality and his preference for targeting the helpless, Greyback was about as terrifying as they come. Essentially a cannibal with superhuman strength and an ability to perform magic. And in the films, it's quite clear. Lavender dies. It's not really up for debate. She falls from a balcony and is savaged by Greyback. Actress Jessie Cave even confirmed this in an interview. What was the last scene you filmed on the very last film? Mine was my death scene, which is quite fitting, really. But in the books, things aren't quite so straightforward. The last time she's mentioned, her body is described as feebly stirring when Greyback is blasted away. It never explicitly says she died, and if we're going strictly by book canon, it's hard to say whether or not she survived. But although it's never stated outright that Lavender dies, there are several strong clues that suggest it. First of all, her injuries were extremely severe. Falling from a balcony and then being mauled by a werewolf isn't something you just bounce back from. Second of all, she's never mentioned again after that scene, suggesting she wasn't around anymore. Third of all, she isn't seen at platform 9 3/4 in the final chapter, nor does she appear in The Cursed Child. And finally, Pottermore itself lists Lavender as presumed dead, which, although still ambiguous, seems like a strong indicator that she died. Dolores Umbridge. Umbridge is arguably the worst character in the entire Harry Potter story, and she first makes her mark when she infiltrates Hogwarts and makes life at the school a living hell, probably an understatement. That is, until she's tricked into travelling to the Forbidden Forest by Harry and Hermione, only to be met with a horde of angry centaurs who carry her off. After this, she's saved by a merciful Dumbledore, huge mistake, and sacked from her headmistress position after it's revealed that Voldemort had in fact returned. Amazingly, however, Umbridge still found herself with a job after leaving Hogwarts. In fact, the Ministry accepted her back in her previous role of Senior Undersecretary to the Minister of Magic. By this time, the Ministry also had a new minister, Rufus Scrimgeour. Despite a brief appearance at Dumbledore's funeral, the next we hear of Umbridge is in 1997, following Voldemort's takeover of the Ministry. In addition to her primary position of Undersecretary, Umbridge also became head of the Muggleborn Registration Commission, where she conducted trials that were effectively designed to prosecute Muggleborns. She can be seen sitting in a court wearing Salazar Slytherin's locket, one of Voldemort's Horcruxes, a powerful symbol of her obsession with blood purity and her willingness to abuse power for personal gain. And it's in this role that she torments countless innocent witches and wizards, sending them to Azkaban or worse, under the guise of lawful justice. But after Harry, Ron, and Hermione infiltrate the Ministry, expose her possession of the locket, and free the Muggleborns awaiting trial, Umbridge vanishes from the narrative entirely. And here's where things get murky. Rowling never directly tells us what happens to Umbridge once Voldemort is defeated. Was she placed on trial for her many crimes against Muggleborns and Half-Bloods? Was she sentenced to Azkaban, like so many Death Eaters were? Or did she manage to slither out of accountability once again, hiding behind the bureaucracy and her years of loyal service to the Ministry? Fortunately, Rowling later cleared this one up in a web chat with the Leaky Cauldron. She explained that after Voldemort's defeat, the Ministry of Magic underwent sweeping reforms under new leadership. Fully aware of Umbridge's true nature and the atrocities she committed during Voldemort's regime, the new administration wasted no time. And so she was promptly arrested, tried, convicted, and sentenced to spend the rest of her life in Azkaban, where she lived out her days behind the fortress's grim walls. Ah, justice. Gilderoy Lockhart. In Chamber of Secrets, Lockhart is forced by Harry and Ron to accompany them into the Chamber of Secrets, and this is where everything truly fell apart for him. Desperate to regain control of the situation, he stole Ron's broken wand and attempted to cast a memory charm on them. The adventure ends here, boys. I shall take a bit of this skin back up to the school, tell them I was too late to save the girl, and that you two tragically lost your minds at the sight of her mangled body. Say goodbye to your memories. Obliviate. However, since the wand was broken, the spell backfired spectacularly. The blast sent Lockhart hurtling into a pile of rubble, and in the process erased all of his memories. He experienced complete amnesia. He was no longer the brave troll conqueror and dragon tamer. In fact, he didn't even know who he was. Lockhart is later saved by Fawkes and brought to McGonagall's office, at which point it became apparent to staff and students alike that Lockhart had completely lost his marbles, with Dumbledore instructing Ron to take him to the hospital wing. After careful inspection, it was decided that Lockhart wouldn't be able to operate in society in the state that he was in, and he was subsequently sent to the Janus Thickey ward in St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies, a ward dedicated to those suffering from permanent spell damage. During Christmas in 1995, Harry, Ron, Hermione and Ginny saw Lockhart in the Janus Thickey ward, and despite the total loss of his memory, he seemed just as Lockhart as ever, offering up autographs and the like. He had regained just enough memory to remember writing in cursive. Teach? Me? Did I? Taught you everything you know, I expect, did I? Well, how about those autographs then? Shall we say a round dozen? You can give them to all your little friends then, and nobody will be left out. But after this brief mention in the Order of the Phoenix, we don't hear about Lockhart again. So, what's the deal? Did he ever make any kind of a recovery, or did he remain a victim to the exact type of magic that he so willingly inflicted upon others? From everything I've been able to find, from interviews, extended publications, etc., it looks like Lockhart spent the rest of his days there. And while Lockhart didn't get many visitors, he still regularly got fan mail from a witch named Gladys Gudgeon, and developed a close relationship with his carer, Miriam Strout. He also signed autographs for the rest of his days, and it's been expressed that he was happier that way, blissfully ignorant but more than happy to reap the benefits of his illustrious fame. Winky. Winky was a fan-favourite character who was left out of the films entirely. A devoted female house elf, she served the Crouch family for many years before eventually finding work at Hogwarts. But after failing Barty Crouch Sr., Winky fell into a deep depression, convinced she had brought disgrace upon herself. Struggling with guilt and shame, she developed a dependence on butterbeer, an addiction that plagued her for years. She also had a great degree of trouble adjusting to freedom. Unlike Dobby, who embraced his independence and sought out work on his own terms, Winky felt that being freed was a source of deep shame. For her, servitude was not only natural but honourable, and the loss of her position left her directionless. She eventually found employment in the Hogwarts kitchens, but even then, her depression lingered, and her dependence on butterbeer worsened. While Dobby tried to look out for her, Winky remained withdrawn, and after Dobby's death, the question of what became of Winky becomes even more tragic. With no one left to guide her or pick her up when she stumbled, her fate was left completely unresolved. However, we do know from a J.K. Rowling web chat in 2007 that Winky fought alongside the other house elves during the Battle of Hogwarts, A moment of bravery that proved there was still fight left in her, despite everything she had been through. And beyond that, Winky's story ends in silence. It's never revealed whether she overcame her struggles with depression and drink, or if she ever managed to find a true sense of belonging at Hogwarts. Did she continue to work quietly in the kitchens, carrying her sorrow with her, or did she slowly rebuild her strength and carve out a new life after the war? In the end, Winky's fate remains one of the many unanswered questions left behind in the series. Marietta Edgecombe's pimples. Marietta Edgecombe is remembered mostly for one thing: betraying Dumbledore's army to Dolores Umbridge in Order of the Phoenix. Unfortunately for her, however, she had signed a cursed sign-up sheet, which meant that when she revealed the secret, the jinx on the parchment activated, erupting into angry boils across her face that spelled out one word in vivid purple pustules: sneak. From that moment on, Marietta's role in the series was defined by the curse, and she appears only once more after this incident, her face caked in heavy makeup as she desperately tries to conceal the lingering scars. After that, she vanishes. And one question that's been left wide open is whether or not she actually recovered. Did the scars eventually fade, or was she permanently marked for her betrayal? In an interview with Bloomsbury back in 2007, J.K. Rowling confirmed that although they faded, they never quite went away. She explained that the spots went away eventually, adding, "But it left a few scars. I loathe the traitor." Anyway, that's it for today's video. I've got plenty more where these 5 came from, so let me know if you want me to resolve the mysterious fates of even more characters from the books. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live.